Human relationships are really tough. A person's true character always seeps out somewhere. But when you think about it, I believe it all comes down to whether you can truly see through someone's personality. Why did that person betray me? Why did someone I trusted hurt me? Many people struggle with these kinds of worries. As a business owner, I've met countless people. There were truly good people, but honestly, there were also plenty who weren't. From that experience, I can say this clearly. You can't hide someone's true character forever. It shows in their words, their attitude, their expression, their gaze. The real core of a person's heart inevitably shows in their face and actions. For example, someone's gaze. No matter how friendly their words, their eyes alone can be cold and seem to look down on people, or someone who absolutely refuses to apologize when they should. You just can't trust people like that. That's why I often tell young folks, look at a person's heart. But remember, you can't see the heart directly. It seeps out through expressions, attitudes, and words. Learn to see through that seepage. What I'll talk about this time are 8 signs that reveal such bad character. This isn't just about dealing with people. It also serves as a mirror for reflecting on yourself as you live your life. In other words, it's not just about seeing through others. It's also about placing your hand on your heart and asking yourself if you're like that. The 8 teachings I'm about to share, all of these are situations where bad character seeps out. Now, I want you to open your heart and listen. If something strikes a chord, I believe it will surely be a chance for change. Teaching 1. A contemptuous gaze reveals bad character. How you look at people. This, you see, is where a person's true nature is laid bare. For example, when you meet someone for the first time, notice how their eyes move, where they look. Those who truly see people as precious beings have gentle eyes. Conversely, those who measure people by whether they're useful or not, whether they bring gain or loss, inevitably have a cold gaze. I've been in business for a long time. Running a company means you can't succeed without valuing people. But I've seen it firsthand on the front lines. People who look down on others always fail somewhere. Why? Because they don't see people as human beings. They see them as tools. They judge others solely on whether they're useful to them. No matter how smart these people are, no matter what skills they have, they won't earn trust. They might gain short-term advantages, but ultimately, the people around them drift away. Take this story from my youth, for instance. Back when Matsushita Electric was still a small factory, there was a rep from one of our suppliers. He'd say things like, "Let's definitely work together," and put on a smile. But there was something cold in his eyes. It felt like he was calculating, how much profit can I squeeze out of these guys? We did business with him several times, and sure enough, it was just as I suspected. Even if they put on a good face at first, later they'd jack up prices or miss delivery deadlines. I learned the hard way that a lack of respect for people always shows in their actions. Conversely, people who genuinely value others have different eyes. Their gaze is direct and warm. It radiates not just calculation, but a desire to create something good together. Connections with such people last, and trust builds steadily. Humans are strange creatures. Often, a person's heart is conveyed more by their gaze than their words. People are keenly aware of how this person sees me. So if you look down on someone with contempt, it inevitably makes them wary. It's the same with subordinates. A boss who looks at them thinking, is this subordinate useful? Or will this guy be of any use? Can never draw out their true feelings. The subordinate thinks, they're just using me anyway, and holds back. Ultimately, the organization weakens. On the other hand, a boss who genuinely values their subordinate as a person has a different look in their eyes. You have potential. Let's grow together. That belief shines through. Then the subordinate feels secure and performs at their best. Trust builds, and the organization grows stronger. I often say this. Every human being is a precious existence. Those who truly understand this never look down on others. Even if someone is unknown, lacks education, or has no money, they respect them equally. That mindset shows in their gaze and inspires trust. Conversely, people who look down on others are proof they think, I'm superior. That mindset seeps out as bad character. Naturally, in the long run, they're bound to fail. The same holds true today. whether in work or relationships. People who judge others based on whether they're beneficial to me will always show in their attitude. You see people in society who measure others solely by their titles or possessions, right? But it's precisely those people who lose respect. What matters is holding respect for everyone. Every human being holds potential. When you see people with that belief, your gaze naturally warms, and that gaze reaches the other person's heart. That's precisely why we must ask ourselves, am I looking down on people? Am I judging them solely by what I stand to gain or lose? If so, it inevitably shows to those around you. No matter how much you try to cover it up with words, it seeps through your gaze. This is seen by others as a sign of bad character. I'm sometimes called a successful businessman, but that's because I've always cherished the heart that values people. Human beings are precious. Holding this belief changes your gaze. And I believe that gaze attracts people and builds trust. Lesson 2. Those who can't apologize won't grow. Humans make mistakes. There's no such thing as a perfect person in this world. That's precisely why what matters is what you do when you make a mistake. In my years on the business path, I've seen it time and again. Smart people, knowledgeable people, skilled people, even they fail. But those who can honestly say, my bad, I messed up, always grow. On the other hand, those who can't apologize stop growing right there. What I always say is, honesty is humanity's greatest strength. Honestly admitting your fault and bowing your head. Those who can do that have a broad heart. And people who see that think, this person is trustworthy. As a result, that person gets support from those around them and grows even more. But what about those who can't apologize? It wasn't my fault. The situation was just bad. It's the other person's fault for not understanding. They shift the blame elsewhere. At first glance, this might seem like they're protecting their pride. But really, they're destroying their own chance to grow. Back when I was young, working on light bulb sockets, we had a problem once. A major client gave us a harsh complaint. Inside the factory, it was all, whose fault is this? The design is bad. Nah, it's the production line's fault. Everyone was just passing the buck. At that time, I told the young employees, before you start pointing fingers, you have to say I'm sorry first. The customer is suffering. Apologizing means accepting their pain as your own. Apologizing is never a sign of defeat. Rather, it's the first step toward building new trust. At that time, I bowed my head sincerely and apologized to the customer. Precisely because of that, that client believed Matsushita is a company that takes responsibility and continued doing business with us. Conversely, what happens to those who can't apologize? They might get away with it at first, but eventually they lose trust that it's true in business and in personal relationships. Whether between spouses, friends, or coworkers, persistently insisting, I'm not at fault, pushes the other person away. They start thinking, this person only cares about protecting themselves. True strength lies in the courage to admit fault. Showing vulnerability actually reveals the true greatness of a person. I recall a story about an employee at a certain company. He was talented, but he absolutely refused to admit his mistakes. He always blamed bad circumstances or poor environment. Eventually, his colleagues and superiors thought, there's no point being honest with him, and he became isolated. On the other hand, another employee often made mistakes and was clumsy, but every time he failed, he'd apologize, saying sorry. I'll definitely improve next time. His sincerity made everyone want to help him out. Before anyone knew it, that employee had grown much more than the other. Human growth isn't about high ability. It's about sincerity. And that sincerity starts with apologizing. People who can't apologize end up spending all their energy just protecting themselves. It's like exposing their small-mindedness. No matter how much they try to cover it up, their bad character seeps through that attitude. Conversely, those who can apologize are people who admit, I'm not perfect. That humility draws people in. I believe people who grow are always those who can offer this kind of sincere apology. Isn't it the same in modern society? Even in corporate scandals, companies that apologize sincerely from the start recover. Companies that cover things up and evade responsibility are driven into an irreparable loss of trust. It's the same in human relationships that a simple, "I'm sorry," can mend a relationship. But by not saying those words, some people lose connections forever. Apologizing doesn't make you small. Rather, it's the first step toward becoming a greater person. That's precisely why I want to tell you all, those who can't apologize won't grow. I'm not just talking about others. This is a warning to myself too. Even in my position as president and chairman, I often apologize to my employees. I made a mistake in my judgment. I'm sorry, saying that deepened trust with my employees. I believe that, in turn, helped grow the company. Apologizing is the greatest weapon for human growth. Lesson 3. People who only speak ill behind others' backs are untrustworthy. Speaking ill of others, whether openly or behind their backs, ultimately only diminishes your own character, especially those who sneak around gossiping in secret. That just shows their rotten character shining through. I've always believed one thing. The foundation of human relationships is trust. People cooperate because there's trust. Business continues because there's trust. Organizations grow strong because there's trust. But there's something that can destroy that trust in an instant. That's backbiting. Let me tell you about one employee. Outwardly, he was all smiles, friendly to both superiors and colleagues. But behind the scenes, he was always bad-mouthing people, saying things like, "That guy's incompetent," or "The higher-ups don't know anything." At first, no one noticed. But people have ears. Gradually, those backhanded comments started leaking out. He puts on a good face in front of everyone, but apparently he talks trash behind their backs. The moment that reputation took hold, trust in him crumbled to pieces. He could do his job, but people wouldn't follow him. In the end, that employee became isolated. When managing, I always told my employees, backbiting brings 100 harms and not a single benefit. There's nothing to gain from speaking ill behind someone's back. It might vent your frustration for a moment, but that gossip always comes back to bite you. Putting others down never lifts you up. The more you gossip, the more your own credibility plummets. What matters most in relationships is speaking honestly. Of course, confronting someone directly takes courage. Sometimes it might ruffle feathers. But people who face things head-on earn trust. Those who gossip behind your back lack that courage. Not being able to speak directly to someone is just self-preservation. That's what seeps out as bad character. I myself have had to tell employees tough truths in management. This product won't work. This approach is a failure. When I had to say those things, I said them clearly and directly. I never whisper behind their backs. That guy can't do anything right. If I had, the employees would never have followed me. Once, an employee asked me this, "President, how should I handle people who speak ill of others?" I answered, "People who speak ill are just tearing up their own hearts. You mustn't step onto the same stage as them. You must confront them directly and say, 'That's not right.' In other words, you mustn't pander to backstabbers. Even silently listening makes you complicit in their slander. People who gossip always show it in their faces and attitudes. They might smile outwardly, but something about their smile isn't genuine. Their gaze becomes cold and contemptuous. Their words get sharp edges. People around them pick up on this instantly. They start wondering, what is this person saying behind our backs? Losing trust happens in an instant. Isn't this even more true in modern society? At work, at school, even at home. Gossip and rumors spread in the blink of an eye. But that just shows their bad character shining through. People like that can earn trust. They might grab attention temporarily, but in the long run, they leave nothing behind. What matters is increasing words of gratitude, not backbiting. Encouraging someone, not pulling them down. That makes your heart much brighter and earns the trust of those around you that I often told my employees. Instead of finding fault with people, look for their good points. Everyone has flaws, but at the same time, they always have strengths too. People who focus on this naturally earn trust. That's why I want to tell you all, people who constantly gossip behind others' backs are untrustworthy. This is both a standard for judging others and a lesson for disciplining yourself. Are you speaking ill of someone behind their back? If you are, those words will inevitably come back to you. That's when you lose trust. Building trust takes years. but losing it happens in an instant. That instant pitfall is backbiting. Lesson 4. A condescending gaze cannot hide a twisted heart. The heart shows in the eyes. After dealing with people for so long, I can say this with certainty. Gentle eyes, honest eyes, straightforward eyes. Those kinds of eyes put people at ease. But look down on people or look at them with contempt. You can't hide the warped state of your heart. No matter how noble your words, no matter how big your smile, if your eyes are cold, the other person will sense it keenly. I met all kinds of people since I was young. Business owners, politicians, academics, craftsmen, students. What I've come to realize is that a person's heart shows first in their eyes. Take, for example, a certain successful businessman I met. On the surface, he used polite language, but his eyes always seemed to look down on others, radiating both a confidence of, "I'm superior," and an arrogance that seeped through. His company prospered for a time, but eventually lost credibility and collapsed. Now, consider another businessman. He had no fancy degree or impressive title, yet his eyes were honest, warm, and showed not a trace of looking down on others. His company grew into a major enterprise, beloved by many. I truly felt that whether someone looks down on others can even determine a company's fate. That look of condescension ultimately stems from the thought, "I'm better than you." They measure people by wealth, education, or knowledge. I have this much, that guy doesn't. That kind of mindset builds up and shows in their eyes. But you know what? I think every human being is precious. There's no hierarchy in birth. A person's worth doesn't change based on position or wealth. People who truly understand that would never look down on others. I recall a craftsman who worked in a factory once. He had no formal education and was a man of few words, but his eyes were always earnest, and his dedication to his craft shone through. The young employees initially thought he was just a quiet guy, but gradually they were moved by his sincerity. Before long, he earned the trust of a younger staff and naturally became a leader-like figure. Not eyes that look down on people, but eyes that look straight at things. That's what draws people in. Conversely, those who look down on others end up isolated. Subordinates might obey them at first, but deep down they feel this person can't be trusted. Eventually, people drift away, leaving only hollow authority behind. Isn't it the same in families? If one spouse looks down on the other, that coldness shows in their eyes. Children sense it keenly. If a child thinks, "Dad looks down on me," their heart closes. Such families don't last. I often told my employees, don't see others as above or below you. Seek to learn from them. When you hold respect for others, your eyes naturally soften. Conversely, if you think, "I'm superior," your eyes grow cold and your bad character seeps through. Eyes don't lie. They reveal a person's true character. The same holds true in modern society. In schools, companies, or towns, people who look down on others inevitably ruin their reputation. Conversely, those who look at people with respect naturally gain the trust and admiration of others. I believe that looking down on others is also a reflection of one's own insecurity and inferiority complex. Truly confident people never look down on others. Conversely, the more twisted a person's heart is, the more they seek reassurance by looking down on others. That's why I ask you all, do you look down on people? Do you send cold stares, viewing others as inferior? If so, that inner distortion will inevitably reach the other person. No matter how much you try to hide it, it seeps out through your eyes. That's what causes you to lose trust and destroys relationships. Having walked the path of business, I believe what remains in the end is the respect of others. Wealth and status will eventually fade, but the respect of others endures even after death. Those who look down on others will never gather that respect. Conversely, those who humbly respect others will naturally attract it. This difference profoundly divides lives. Whether you look down on others or not, that is a crucial fork in the road where the true nature of your heart seeps through. Fifth teaching: how you treat the weak reveals your true nature. A person's true nature isn't shown by how they treat the powerful or those in high positions, but by how they treat the weak. Anyone can bow their head to someone important or powerful. But when dealing with the powerless, those in weak positions, a person's true heart is laid bare. That's why you can immediately see someone's true nature by observing their attitude toward the weak. I often told my employees, he who neglects small matters cannot accomplish great ones. Here, small matters doesn't necessarily mean trivial things. How one treats those in socially vulnerable positions, those easily overlooked, that becomes the yardstick for measuring their humanity. Take this story about a client. They'd smile politely and treat executives from big companies with great courtesy, yet adopt a cold attitude toward subcontractors working in factories. You lot just shut up and do what you're told. That was their attitude. At first, the other side complied, but people aren't stupid. Those in weaker positions are especially sensitive to sensing someone's true nature. The moment they think, this person looks down on me, trust vanishes. That company eventually lost the cooperation it needed, and their business began to decline. On the other hand, another manager was different. He treated everyone the same, whether it was a big shot at a client company or a factory worker. He approached everyone with respect. Our work only works because you're here. He'd say things like that, and he meant it. Everyone was moved by his sincerity. His company gained huge trust and grew. Looking down on the weak ultimately comes from thinking I'm superior. But every human being is precious, that I've said it many times. A person's worth isn't determined by status or wealth. Every human being is precious. Those who truly understand this deep down never change their attitude toward anyone. Conversely, those with twisted hearts end up looking down on the weak. That seeps out as bad character. Even after becoming president and chairman, I still ate meals with young employees in the company cafeteria that I talked freely with factory workers and cleaning ladies alike. Some said, the president doesn't need to do that, but to me, it was natural. No one is inherently superior. Each person supports the workplace in their own way. I believe we must never forget that. Isn't it the same at home? Parents who act haughtily toward their children. You have to listen because I'm your parent. If you keep that attitude, children will shut their hearts. Conversely, parents who treat their children with respect as individuals earn their trust. How we treat the vulnerable matters deeply, even within the family. The same holds true in modern society. People who act arrogantly toward restaurant staff, look down on taxi drivers, or treat subordinates with contempt. Seeing such attitudes reveals a person's true nature instantly. And no matter how fine a suit they wear, no matter how nice a car they drive, if their attitude toward the weak is cold, their humanity is shallow. That's why I think this. A person's true character isn't measured by their attitude toward the strong. It's measured by their attitude toward the weak. Truly big-hearted people are warm toward the vulnerable. Precisely because they have power, they use it to protect the weak. That, I believe, is true human dignity. Everyone, ask yourself this. Do you look down on the weak? Do you treat those in vulnerable positions coldly? If so, it's definitely showing. That attitude seeps out as bad character and makes you lose trust. Conversely, those who value the weak gather respect. Whether at work or home, it always comes back to you in a good way. As a business owner, I believe the one thing that lasts in the end is the respect of others. Wealth and company size are temporary, but the respect of others remains even after that person is gone. An attitude that values the vulnerable becomes the light that illuminates that person's entire life. That's precisely why I want you to remember this. Your true nature shows in how you treat the vulnerable. That attitude seeps out as a sign of bad character, greatly influencing both your relationships and your life. Sixth teaching, those who rage violently lack humanity. Humans get angry sometimes. That's natural, and anger itself isn't bad. But what matters is how you express that anger. People who rage violently, who shout to intimidate others, they might silence someone temporarily, but ultimately, they lose trust. Their shallow humanity seeps through. I often say, anger leads people astray. It's true. Words spoken in anger can deeply wound someone. Actions taken in anger can lead to major failures. That's precisely why how you express anger reveals your character. I recall one employee. He was good at his job, knowledgeable, delivering results. But he had one flaw. He would yell at his subordinates over their mistakes. How could you not even do this? Use your head. He'd slam his fist on the desk, making the person shrink back. At first, the subordinates obeyed out of fear, but it couldn't last long. Gradually, they closed themselves off and stopped speaking their minds. As a result, that team couldn't perform to its full potential. On the other hand, how did another employee handle it? When a subordinate made a mistake, he'd calmly say, "This part is different." He never yelled, but his eyes were serious. So the subordinate took his words to heart. He's not blaming me. He's trying to help me grow. Feeling this, the subordinate didn't shrink back. Instead, they became motivated. Even when getting angry, the impact on the other person differs as much as heaven and earth depending on how you express that anger. People who express anger violently are ultimately people who can't control their own emotions. It's like exposing their immaturity, and no matter how high your position or how much knowledge you possess, people are disappointed when they see you yelling in a fit of emotion. That violent anger reveals a bad character and shallow humanity. I myself have often felt anger in management. When defective products came out of the factory, when employees broke promises, when clients did something treacherous. Inside, I'd sometimes feel anger welling up, thinking why. But you see, if you just lash out in anger, the other person closes their heart. So I started thinking, how can I help this person avoid making the same mistake next time? Use anger not to crush the other person, but to help them grow. Once you hold that intention, how you express your anger changes. It's the same at home, isn't it? When parents get angry at their children, if they just yell and scream in the heat of the moment, the child shrinks back, they'll convince themselves, "I'm a worthless person," and their spirit will break. But parents who calmly, yet firmly, say, "This part is wrong," earn their child's trust. "Dad scolds me. He's watching over me." Thinking that way is how children grow. How you express anger can either crush a person or nurture them. That's how much your humanity shows in how you express anger. In modern society, bosses who lash out violently at subordinates are now seen as problematic. Power harassment. But this has always been the case. In any era, those who rage violently lose people's respect. On the other hand, those who can calmly reprimand gain respect. That's human nature. So I ask you all, do you lash out violently? Do you yell in anger, hurting others? If so, that anger reveals your bad character. And that character will always be seen by those around you. Those who control their anger can nurture people. They gain respect and achieve great results. How you express anger truly shows your character. Finally, I want to say this. Those who express anger violently lack humanity. This isn't just advice. It's a call to reflect on yourself. How someone expresses anger reveals the maturity of their heart. That's where their character flaws show through. Stop expressing anger in ways that hurt others and learn to express it in ways that nurture them. I believe that's the path to growth as a human being. Lesson 7. Those who forget favors have no future. Humans may seem to live alone, but that's not actually the case. Parents raised us. Teachers taught us. Friends supported us. Customers bought from us. We live within a web of every conceivable favor. Yet, many in this world forget these debts. When they succeed, they think, "I got here on my own strength." They forget the help they received and act as if they never knew. Such people truly have no future. I always say, having a grateful heart is the first step to prosperity. Gratitude isn't just saying thank you with your lips. It's realizing deep down that I am kept alive by others. If you forget that grateful heart, you become arrogant and isolated. Once, I met a certain business owner. He had rapidly grown a large company, but at one point he said, "It's all my own ability. Other people's help had nothing to do with it." Hearing this, I grew concerned. While he certainly had ability, the moment he forgot the support around him, his employees grew cold. The president thinks he did it all on his own. He doesn't care about our contributions at all. Believing this, the employees' hearts drifted away. A few years later, the company faced a major crisis and declined. Those who forget kindness have no future. I thought to myself, that's really true. Now consider another manager. Whenever they achieved great results, they always said, this is thanks to our employees, our business partners, and our customers. Even when honored, they'd say, this isn't just my doing. Those words of gratitude reached the employees, inspiring them to think, let's strive even harder. That company grew stronger and stronger. People and fortune gather around those who remember kindness. Looking back on my own journey with Matsushita Electric, it was a continuous chain of favors. From childhood, I was frail and sent out as an apprentice. The people I met there helped me. When I started Matsushita Electric, my wife and brother-in-law supported me. When cash flow was tight, friends lent a hand. Without each and every one of those favors, I would have stumbled along the way. That's precisely why I've always treasured the phrase, thanks to you. I didn't do it alone. I got this far thanks to everyone. If I forget that feeling, I think I'm finished as a manager and as a human being. It's the same at home, isn't it? The kindness of being raised by your parents. The kindness of being supported by your spouse. The kindness of learning from your children. If you forget that and think, I'm the one doing it for them, the family grows cold. Conversely, a family that always says thank you, it's all thanks to you, will remain warm and enduring. In modern society, I feel there's too much emphasis on personal responsibility and individual strength. Of course, effort matters, but humans aren't alone. We live within society, within connections. Forgetting that makes people self-centered and closes off their future. Those who forget gratitude always show it in their attitude. They don't say thank you. They take others' cooperation for granted. They flaunt their own achievements. Their bad character seeps out through that attitude. People sense it keenly and drift away. Conversely, those who remember kindness have softer expressions and humble attitudes. Because they respect others, people naturally gather around them. That's where the future opens up. That's precisely why I want to ask you all, have you forgotten your debts of gratitude? When you succeed, do you remember the help you received? Forgetting kindness closes the door to the future. Remembering kindness opens it. Finally, I want to say this. Those who forget kindness have no future. This isn't just a lesson. It's the fundamental teaching for humans to live happily. Recognize kindness, be grateful for it, and repay it. I believe this way of life enriches people and illuminates the future. The eighth teaching. Those who won't admit failure cannot be trusted. Every human being makes mistakes. I made my share of failures too. But what matters isn't avoiding failure. It's how you handle it. Those who can honestly admit their mistakes learn from them and apply that knowledge next time. But those who refuse to admit failure repeat the same mistakes. And above all, they lose the trust of those around them. I often say, success lies in making use of failure. Honestly admitting failure is the first step to earning trust. I was wrong. My judgment was poor. People who can say that earn trust. Conversely, those who hide failures or blame others are quickly seen through and lose credibility. Back when I was young, making sockets, a defect was found in a product. It had just shipped, and the customer gave us harsh feedback. I immediately apologized. This is our responsibility. That I'm sorry. Some employees suggested, couldn't we gloss over it a bit? But I shook my head. Covering it up just loses trust in the end. Admitting it honestly builds the future. That sincerity came through, and that client continued doing business with us. By admitting the failure, trust actually deepened. On the other hand, what happens to those who won't admit failure? For example, when a subordinate makes a mistake, a boss who says, I didn't know. It's the subordinate's fault. What does the subordinate think then? This person won't take responsibility. They're only protecting themselves. Trust plummets when they think that. One employee was like that. He was talented, but he never admitted failure. He always made excuses like the situation was bad or it was just bad luck. At first, people around him tolerated it, but gradually they thought, we can't rely on that person. In the end, he never reached a position of responsibility. Admitting failure takes courage. It hurts your pride. It means acknowledging your own powerlessness. But, it's only by overcoming that people grow. I myself have made wrong management decisions many times. I've tried new ventures that didn't work out. At those times, I told my employees, my judgment was wrong. I'm sorry. If a manager won't admit failure, employees won't speak up honestly about their mistakes either. That's how an entire organization rots from the inside. It's the same at home, isn't it? If parents never admit their own mistakes, they always push the blame onto their children. It's because you wouldn't listen. If they keep saying that, what will the child think? My parents never own up to their faults. That feeling makes the child drift away emotionally. On the other hand, what if the parent says, I'm sorry, this was Dad's fault? The child feels reassured and begins to respect their parent. The willingness to admit failure has the power to deepen relationships. Corporate scandals often make the news. Companies that quickly admit their mistakes and apologize can bounce back, even after criticism. But companies that try to hide things and get caught lose all credibility. This isn't limited to the business world. It's exactly the same in personal relationships. An attitude of refusing to admit failure inevitably seeps out as a sign of bad character. Their expressions stiffen, their speech becomes awkward. People are sensitive, they see right through it. Once someone thinks, this person can't be trusted, that's the end of it. That's why I want to tell you all, people who won't admit their mistakes aren't trusted. This isn't just about morality. It's a vital truth that opens doors in life. Those with the courage to admit failure gather trust and open their future. Those who hide their failures lose trust and close their future. Finally, I want to say this. Failure is unavoidable for humans. But how you handle failure is up to you. Will you admit it honestly or cover it up and run? That choice profoundly shapes your life. Will you gain trust or lose it? Will you open your future or close it? People who won't admit their failures aren't trusted. This is a truth I've witnessed countless times in my long life. I hope you'll all engrave these words in your hearts. A bad character will seep out, but if you correct your heart, the future will open. I have now shared 8 teachings. A contemptuous gaze reveals a bad character. Those who cannot apologize cannot grow. People who only speak ill behind others' backs cannot be trusted. A look that looks down on others cannot hide a twisted heart. An attitude that looks down on the weak reveals one's true nature. Those who express anger violently lack humanity. Those who forget kindness have no future. Those who refuse to admit failure cannot be trusted. These are all truths about human nature I've witnessed through my long life and business experience. One's character can never truly be hidden, no matter how polished their words, no matter how impressive their appearance. What lies within the heart will inevitably seep out. Some might say, I already know that, but are you truly examining your own words and actions? Do you look down on others? Do you stubbornly refuse to apologize when you should? Do you speak ill of others behind their backs? Do you act arrogantly toward those in weaker positions? Do you hurt people in anger? Do you forget kindness and become self-centered? Do you hide your failures and blame others? Asking these questions might sting for some, but that's precisely the opportunity. Humans are unfinished beings. Everyone carries flaws within them. What matters is acknowledging them and working to correct them. As a business owner, I'm sometimes spoken of as if I'm some great figure, but I've made mistakes and failed. Each time, though, I've asked myself, how do I fix this? And what can I learn from this? By doing that, bit by bit, I believe I've grown. In other words, people can change. You can't avoid your flaws showing through. But if you straighten your heart, what seeps out changes too. Kindness, sincerity, humility, gratitude. You can become someone who radiates those things. Everyone, please remember this. What determines your life isn't status, wealth, or education. It's your state of mind. And that mind will always seep out in your attitude and expression. If you leave your flaws unchecked, people will drift away and your future will close. But if you cultivate your heart, people will gather and your future will open. I've seen this countless times throughout my long life. Every human carries some bad traits, but everyone also possesses the power to change them. How you live is up to you. Will you end your life radiating your flaws, or open your future radiating kindness and gratitude? The answer lies within your own heart. Finally, I have a request for everyone. If any teaching from today's talk resonated with you, please write 100 in the comment section. And if you thought, I want to fix this part, please write 0. Also, if you'd like to continue learning together, please subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications to hear the next message. Thank you for watching until the end.